is the only sport where unknown competitors turn into modern-day gladiators, where the roses rise through the concrete of deadly fists. Fighters not only become champions, they also become icons. The Unprofessional Experts podcast is committed to delivering raw, unfiltered content solely focused on the world's most unforgiving sport. So without hesitation, be sure to subscribe, like, and follow to our podcast. With that being said, God listens to our podcast, so should you. You're welcome.
Flames don't intimidate us. What do? We control the flame.
In the red corner, we have the global phenomenon, Dave O, the Destroyer. In the blue corner, we have the legendary JMC.
Welcome back, fight fans. Per usual, it is the Unprofessional Experts podcast. We got JMC and Davo. Go ahead, like, follow, subscribe, tell a friend, tell a best friend, tell a aunt, tell a cousin, tell a chicken, tell a cat. Because if you do not, we're going to have to fight in real life, man. We are available everywhere. I mean, literally anywhere. Spotify, Pandora, of course, the YouTube channel for the viewers. We got the listeners locked in as well. All you have to do is just search the Unprofessional Experts podcast. Get tapped in. You ready, bro?
I'm ready, man. So let's go ahead and start this episode off. Just paying homage and giving respect to a Hall of Fame heavyweight fighter who just passed away recently, and I'm talking about Big George Foreman. So what we want to do is give it 10 seconds, give it 10 count, and just pay respect to George Foreman.
R.P. Big George.
So speaking of Big George, so we just want to kind of give a quick rundown and talk about his career, his Hall of Fame career, and all of the great things that Big George is able to do in his first and second career that he had in the ring, man. What an amazing career, amazing heavyweight fighter, all the legendary fights he had. How we feeling about Big George and his career?
Man, R.I.P. the legendary Big George Foreman, man. When you say George Foreman, as far as his legendary career, the first fight that comes to mind for me is the Thriller in Manila. You know, I remember watching that on VHS, man, as a kid. I don't know where we got that tape from, probably Coach Chambers. But the Thriller in Manila, man, that's where Ali introduced the rope-a-dope. You got George Foreman wailing on him, and pretty much one of the most iconic fights in boxing. Also, man, his fight with Joe Frazier, man, he hits Joe Frazier in the back of the head. Joe Frazier does like the Drew Hill hop, trying to get away from him. He's on one leg, man, some iconic stuff. He comes back after a 10-year hiatus, and he's like 45 years old, becomes the champ again, knocks out Michael Moore. Talking about legendary stuff, man. One of the most iconic figures in the sport, man. Shout out Big George Foreman, RIP to him, and condolences to his family, man. What an impact that he had on the sport that we love.
No, that's facts. And one of the main fights that sticks out to me in Foreman's career is the fight he had with Holyfield. To me, man, that's a fight that every boxing fan should watch, because I mean, you talk about just an exciting fight, two heavyweights going at it, throwing leather. That was a legend, and this was in the comeback years.
Yeah.
That Foreman had, against a formidable Evander Holyfield,
One of the top guys in the sport at the time.
man. So yeah, shout out to Big George, man, true champion. And of course that fight he had with Ali, legendary, legendary scrap he had with Muhammad. So yeah, man, shout out to Big George, man. What a career, man.
I liked his comeback. I like that he was older than what he should have been, and he's still putting boys to sleep. Like,
Yeah,
and it's like
still doing his thing.
it's arm punches, but it's deadly. And he's putting boys on the mat out cold. Just all of the highlights and all of the things that I've seen, man, I really liked. I would say that uppercut. I believe it was George Cooney. The walk by uppercut.
Yeah, he just walked right into you with it. Mean.
Probably one of the greater knockouts ever in all of history of everything. That walk by uppercut he landed on Cooney. That's got to be probably the biggest, best highlight. But I also want to point out, not a lot of boxers have a successful career outside of boxing. They kind of just fade to black. And in all seriousness, I absolutely love that grill. The George Foreman grill was a thing, right?
It was definitely a big thing.
And so I had one, man. I'm not gonna say if I lost weight or not. I may not have, but hey, it was lean. It was great. It cut the fat off all my burgers and my chicken tenders, man. I liked it. Man, I liked he had a secondary career outside of boxing. So it gave me something to think about. Once you hang those gloves up, are you done entertaining? Or do you want to step into the next facet of what you can bring? And so became a good salesman, man. Incredible grill, man. Nothing but respect for George Foreman and his family.
Man, what'd you think about Foreman's defense, man? That defensive shell, man. That iconic defensive maneuver, man, going across the body like that. What do you think about that defense?
Man, you got to be the biggest, toughest guy around to do that, because eating body shots is not recommended. And with that type of defense, you kind of up here with it. You're guarding your grill with your body's open. But he was so big, it didn't matter. I don't think you ever got hurt from a body shot. And so, man, you got to be a hell of a guy to have that type of a defense, that cross defense. Nobody, I don't think, can even do it outside of him. It was great.
I don't know. Like, do you think that somebody like a Tyson Fury or Anthony Joshua could get away with that defense?
Anthony Joshua, absolutely not. But Tyson Fury, he was mobile enough to where he could have. He didn't show any signs of weakness to the body. I don't think anybody outside of a guy like George Foreman really pulls that off successfully.
Well, you know what, Frazier, in a different way, he kind of had somewhat of a similar where he would go across and he would kind of bob and weave.
Yeah, he had a bounce with it.
Yeah, he had a little bounce with it.
I think he was just trying to throw you off with your time, man, with what Frazier was doing. But iconic stuff. Old school style stuff.
Definitely old school, man. Definitely iconic, man. Shout out to Big George. Rest in peace. So what we want to go ahead and do is we want to go ahead and throw Big George in a fantasy matchup. And we feel like the most relevant heavyweight in boxing today is Alexander Usyk. So how would that go down, man? A fight between Big George Foreman. So now are we talking first career or second career Foreman versus Alexander Usyk?
Love Usyk. Generational heavyweight. Great boxing skill. George Foreman knocks him out with a body shot. And I say that because of what Daniel Dubois did. And so Usyk has no weakness. If there is one that we can make up, he might have a weakness to the body. And if Foreman lands that punch, he hurt everybody he fought, he's going to hurt Usyk. And so Usyk has to have the perfect fight for 12 rounds. Was it back then? It might have been 15 rounds, maybe. I don't know when they switched it. But if Usyk doesn't fight the example of what greatness is in that fight for 3 minutes, for 12 rounds straight,
he's on the canvas.
He folds up.
Well, I could see that, and I think everybody could see that. Anybody who would step in the ring with George Foreman, there's a high percentage that you don't make it out of there just walking out of the ring, right? Everybody, I think, understood this about George Foreman. But with Alexander Usyk, the unified heavyweight champion right now, I think that you're kind of sleeping on him a little bit, and I say that because Alexander Usyk is not only a lefty, but he has the Ukrainian has really good footwork, right? And so I could very well see him 12, even 15 rounds using those feet, circling George Foreman, similar to what should I say, to what Ali did a little bit. Now, I'm not saying Alexander Usyk is Muhammad Ali, but I could see him moving around Big George, jabbing, pot-shotting, and staying away from the power. I mean, that's just the only thing that makes sense when you're fighting George Foreman. Stay away from the power, pepper him, get the points. I could see Alexander Usyk doing that.
Man, so I definitely need help from the people on this one. I think without question, George Foreman sends Usyk to the upper room, and he goes away from here. I don't know that Usyk outboxes Big George, and I don't think it takes a lot for Big George to land that punch because it was accurate as well. And it didn't take a lot for Foreman to get his punches off. He didn't have to do the most. He didn't have to set him up. It was an arm punch that would break you. And so I think it would have been hard for Usyk to just box all night, man. Let us know in the comments section below. Usyk uses the ring. He outboxes him. George Foreman is Big George. Man, he puts Usyk on the mat. We definitely need some help on this debate.
Help us out. Help us out. All right, moving on. It's been a little chit-chat, been a little chatter, been a little talking, been a little chirping going on, man, between Terrence Crawford and surprisingly, again, Errol Spence, man. There's been a little chit-chat, little conversation going on. Terrence Crawford going on a podcast talking about Spence potentially being a Hall of Famer or not. Crawford says no. What do you think?
Terrence went on Pound for Pound podcast, and he said that Errol Spence will not be a Hall of Famer. Can you just give me your thoughts on that?
I disagree.
You disagree? Why do you disagree?
I feel as though Errol had a great career. If it wasn't for Bud, he would have been undisputed. So he went and got every belt one by one by one. I think he's a Hall of Famer.
On a podcast with Kamaru Usman, UFC MMA guy, and just the reference, just the clip itself, and he's like, "No, Spence is a Hall of Famer." And in my opinion, Bud immediately starts hating. Bud is my guy, right? But it was a lot of hate to spewed out because Spence is the biggest dub of Crawford's career. And so if you go and say that Spence isn't a Hall of Famer coming from Crawford's mouth, that diminishes Crawford's legacy. And so if the biggest fight of your career was essentially not what they made him out to be, who are you? Right? And so it made no sense for Crawford to try to down what Spence has done in boxing, right?
He should have been big up in him the whole time. Huh?
He should have made Spence to be an absolute legend. It makes more sense. It does more for Crawford's resume, right? And so just thinking about who Spence has fought before Crawford. Who Spence has fought before Crawford. Spence was unified. He fought big names, right? Crawford was the resume that was in question. It was who had Crawford fought, right? And he needed the Spence fight. It wasn't who had Spence fought, and he needed the Crawford fight. Nobody was saying that. And so for Crawford to go and say, he said Spence was a weight bully. He only fought in one weight class. And it's not stuff that takes away from a Hall of Fame resume, to be honest. And so that's why I say it sounded like hate. But there's guys like, no disrespect, but there's guys like Tim Bradley in the Hall of Fame, right? And so, good fighter, champion in his own right. But if you induct Timothy Bradley Jr., you also induct Errol Spence Jr. And so...
And I will have to agree with that.
Absolutely.
I think I agree with that.
Absolutely. I don't know how Spence isn't a Hall of Famer. And granted, the Boxing Hall of Fame is not as distinguished as other sports. There's really some guys who you might have to do some research on in that Boxing Hall of Fame. To whereas in NBA and NFL, you kind of know who those guys are. They really made impact. But there's so many fighters. And so that's the reason for that. There's a million guys in there. Spence is a Hall of Famer.
I would say that Errol Spence is potentially a Hall of Famer.
Okay.
And I say that because, for him to kind of, because it's been a couple years now. So if he goes out of his boxing career with this last fight being against Terrence Crawford, I just don't know. That kind of sits heavy on my heart, saying like, oh yeah, he's a surefire Hall of Famer.
But
going out in that way,
in 10 to 15 years from now, and we're just thinking about the impact of Spence, not with the sour taste of his last defeat, and you're just looking at it as a whole.
I would just like to see him do just do something else.
Yeah.
Right. But something, not a tune up, not a guy that trying to get you back, in the fight shape. I would like to see you have a good. You don't even got to win it. Just have a good showing, because he didn't have a good showing against Terrence Crawford at all. He got beat and he got beat up. So just have a decent showing against a quality fighter or two, right? And I'm not mad at throwing Errol Spence in the Hall of Fame, but I think he's a potential Hall of Famer, but he just kind of needs to keep going maybe a little bit.
I mean, as a whole, we're talking about a former Olympian. We're talking about a unified champ.
Listen, he's done a lot.
He beats Sean Porter.
He's done a lot.
He beats Kell Brook. He beats good guys. Crawford just had his number, but boxing is a sport where a loss can be forgiven. And so let's 100%. Not say a loss knocks him out of the Hall of Fame.
No, absolutely not.
And as much as a fan I am of Crawford, I completely disagree with his take on that. And Spence has got MMA guys going to bat for him, and Crawford's like, hey, no way. Like, oh, how dare you say Spence is a Hall of Famer? But, man.
I would, as far as the Hall of Fame conversation goes, I would like to see Spence put in just a little bit more work and solidify that legacy.
Like, I need a list of Hall of Famers at this point because there's got to be some guys in there. And then what are we talking about? Are we talking about the Texas Hall of Fame, the International Hall of Fame? Because boxing has way too many Hall of Fame.
Texas Hall of Fame for sure. If you're fighting at AT&T Stadium in Dallas or Fort Worth, wherever it is, you're a Texas Hall of Famer all day long.
He beat Ugas, who beat Pacquiao. He's got some good wins.
He's got some decent wins. You're just gonna say surefire Hall of Famer Errol Spence.
I think it's not debatable because he lost to the GOAT. It took the GOAT to dethrone him.
Like I say, I just would like to see him not go out like this.
I think he could retire right now and be a Hall of Famer.
That's tough.
I mean, because if you lose to one of the best ever, how much of a knock is that?
There's no shame in that. There's no shame in just losing in boxing. Period. I mean, most people are gonna it's what boxing is. What it is. But why? Why just sit on that like that? Especially if you really are, like you say, a Hall of Fame fighter. Let's get back in that ring and let's show people.
We need Spence back for sure.
For sure.
And Spence, I think, hopefully he can give us one more. Hopefully, he isn't content with his career, which I think he can be.
As financially, probably so. But as far as getting inducted to the Hall of Fame, and as far as what the people think, right? Like, come on, give us something else. Give us something else to go off.
I want Spencer running back, man. I would like to see him in good. He didn't take tune-ups. Maybe he can take a tune-up and then go out with a bang with one more really good fight.
That's how you do that.
We thought we were going to get Fundora, but that didn't happen. And Fundora, took care of business, so he still has his belts. And so, man, let's get him in there with a Charlo. Let's get him in there with somebody who the people want to see him fight. He hasn't.
Could you see him and Boots getting down?
Well, Boots is at 47, but if he went up to 54, that's a great fight.
That's a great matchup.
Now,
if Errol Spence were to come back and beat somebody like Boots, or even one of the Charlos, listen, that to me that would be enough to say, okay, put this man in the Hall of Fame, especially having a bounce back fight from the Terrence Crawford fight to beating a high caliber fighter. Yeah, throw that man in the Hall of Fame.
Off topic, but I like that you brought up Boots because I have some questions about his resume, and I have some questions about what he's accomplished in boxing.
That's not fair because I don't think anybody's trying to put him at the pinnacle of boxing, right?
They're not, but they're putting him at the top of his weight class, right? And let's be honest, his championship was emailed to him after Crawford vacated it, and we talk about Boots in such a high regard, but I mean he's fighting. Guy's first name is Karen something. And he's about to fight Stanionis next. But, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I like Boots, but I do like that Spence fight. Because then we see what Boots is made of. We really see if Boots is Boots or not. But, man, I need more from Boots.
And we see if Errol still got it, right? Or does he need to just kind of dwindle it on down and go back to Texas, right?
Man, Spence, get off your farm, man. You haven't fought in over a year, and you're still a relevant topic in boxing. Spence, man, we rooting for you. Get back in the mix, man. Take on a big fight. I want to see Spence again, and I want to see what Boots does against Stanionis in this unification fight. And hopefully he moves on to fight bigger names because we need more out of Boots as well. Shout out Philly.
Yeah, we need big fights. We need these big fights for sure. Speaking of big fights and potential big fights, there's a little bit of speculation, right? Who? Speaking of your boy Tim Bradley, what did he say? That Tank might fight who?
Like, look, if this motivates you, Tank, the fact you got to draw, the fact that you had a big fight lined up with Jake Paul after this, and now you got to wait, and now you got to do this rematch, bro. If this don't motivate you, I don't know what will. You know what I'm saying? Because, like, his name right now is getting drugged through the mud. And all those fans that was on his side, bro, a lot of them are switching teams now, So, look, he got a lot to prove, not only to himself, but a lot to prove to his fans and his fan base out there. So he go back in there, had his rematch, and he do what he's supposed to do, like he's supposed to do the first time around, then all the shit that happened in the pad it swept under the rug. Because that's just how, the fans is and the sport is.
So, Tim Bradley is called, I don't know if it's an interview, just random past a reporter backstage, but he's saying that Tank supposedly was lined up to fight Jake Paul after the Lamont Roach fight. But with the Lamont Roach fight ending the way that it did, the public wants a rematch. And so Tank versus Jake Paul, it is asinine. That is the word that comes to mind. It is not what the people want.
And it's definitely not what Tank needs to be doing right now. Even if he does after the Lamont Roach fight, we don't want to see you fight Jake Paul.
At all. It does nothing for Tank. It's a lose-lose, even if he wins. It does everything for Jake Paul if he can land a clean punch. and still lose.
What is Jake Paul, like 200 pounds?
It would have to be an exhibition. It's foolishness. It's tomfoolery. It's blasphemous to the sport of boxing. It is nothing but shenanigans.
Mike Tyson is one thing. Nate Robinson is one thing. Nate Diaz is one thing, right? All of these different guys, like that's one thing. Mm-hmm. But to take an actual championship fighter in the peak of his career, but just at see, it's like you're still playing the games, right? Because you're not fighting somebody 200 pounds. Again, this guy's 130 pounds, 135 pounds. It's like, why are you like what? Like, make it make sense. So it's still the tomfoolery with this guy Jake Paul. Like, man, fight somebody your size and your age that's a real relevant boxer, not Tank Davis.
That would make me dislike Jake. And I would side-eye Gervonta because I'm thinking that we're getting away from opponents who aren't real opponents for him. And then you go and get in the ring with Jake Paul?
Yeah, that's
make
trash.
That make sense.
Yeah, that's trash. It's just altogether trash.
I absolutely hope that does not happen because who asked for that? Man, I hate it, man. If he's not going to fight somebody that can fight, man, get that guy out of boxing.
Yeah. I mean, he's really, if he fights Tank, that's trash. He's kind of making a mockery of boxing and the world champions of boxing. I hate it. I hate everything about it. So I hope that doesn't happen. But very excited to see Tank versus Roach 2. Man, what we thinking about that one?
Lamont Roach is he'll be a game competitor.
Well, I thought it was a super glaze comment.
Obviously, the world would be paying more attention to this fight, right? And so, Lamont Roach boxed well. He defended well. Put his punches together well. Gervonta obviously was caught off guard. He did what he did. It was questionable. I think it's a 50-50 fight now. I think Lamont fought good enough to where Tank even goes harder in training camp.
I can see that for sure.
And I think Lamont Roach was like, wait a minute. Of course you have confidence, but when you get in there and you do well, boost you up a little bit more. Like, okay. All right. I knew I was going to do my thing, but okay.
Especially against somebody like Tank Davis.
So confidence levels will be riding high in that rematch. And I hope I think Gervonta was getting bored with being the best. And that should be gone now. And I hope he's focused. Because we'll see the best Gervonta in this rematch. And I wonder how much better Lamont Roach gets.
Yeah, 100%. That's what I'm thinking as well. We're definitely going to see the best Tank Davis. Hopefully, he leaves the hair grease at home. or we can just have a nice, clean bout matchup. But yeah, and I also, but don't sleep on because I think that's what everybody did the first time, right? We slept on Lamont Roach, and he's like, hold up, wait a minute, don't sleep on me. I'm just as skilled, if not more skillful, than this guy. So I'm not sleeping on Lamont, even though I do feel like Tank will be prepared. Tank will probably have something to prove, have a chip on his shoulder. Because it really wasn't a good outing for him, in this first fight against Lamont Roach. So I think he'll have a chip on his shoulder. I think Lamont Roach is still like, wait a minute, they stole this first fight from me. It should not have been a draw. I'm coming to get what's mine. So I can see Lamont Roach having that attitude. And like I say, it's just going to be a good matchup.
I'll be honest. I never watched Lamont Roach before the Tank fight, but sometimes it takes one fight, and you'll watch the rest of that guy's fights for his career. And I think Lamont Roach performed so well. I'm of the mindset Lamont Roach can go out here and fight whoever, and I'm going to check it out because he performed so well against the top talent in the entire sport.
Facts.
And shout out DC, shout out Lamont Roach, the Roach family. Hopefully, Gervonta has got his game face on. He's prepared mentally. Hopefully, Calvin Ford is in his corner. And hopefully that we get the best version of both fighters that night. And I'm extremely interested in who gets their hand raised. Also, once again, we need input from the public. Are we gassing Lamont Roach? Is Gervonta who we think he is? There's questions here. There's question marks on that performance. Gervonta has to be focused in that rematch, and Lamont Roach has to do more of the same. Is the moment too big for him in the rematch? How many times has Lamont Roach been the pay-per-view main event? And so the stage couldn't be bigger in the Gervonta Davis rematch. And so does Lamont Roach handle it?
I think he proved the first time that he can. I honestly do. He just looked poised, even from every interview, pre-fight interview he did, post-fight interview, during the fight. Like, it just didn't matter. He was poised, collected, and calm, put together. So I do. I think he can handle it, and I think it's going to be a good outing for him again. It's just sometimes styles make fights, and these two, like Roach has just got the kind of style that I don't think that Tank can just kind of come in and bulldoze and just blitz him and get him out of there. He's technically and skillfully sound, and you just can't blitz him and get him out of there. So it's gonna take Tank to be on another level to really get a decisive victory, I think, against Lamont Roach right now.
The way they fought, man, I smell a trilogy. The outcome of their rematch might not matter. They're banking on this, and so it's Gervonta's first guy that really fought back, and so they gotta milk it. It only makes sense.
They should, and I think we would all love to see it. Yeah. So I'm not mad at that.
Trilogy for that, and depending on the outcomes of this rematch plus the trilogy, they might do it a fourth time. It might just be
now. I am the type of guy that I kind of don't want to see people fight 4 times. Like that to me, that's overkill. Like 3 times should be the limit. Like I don't care who it is. For 2 people to fight more than 3 times, that's doing too much.
There are so many bad fights in boxing. I will watch the good ones 5 times if I have to. There's so many mismatches, lopsided.
I get that.
Guys that have no business being in the ring, and we're forced to watch that foolishness on undercards. Some even main events. And so, give it to me 10 times, man. Let that shit keep going forever.
Pause.
I'll keep watching.
But what we are gonna talk about next is so apparently, okay, Usyk Foster and Stephen Fulton are talking about getting down, man. How we feeling about that?
Man, rumor has it, man. Hopefully this is breaking news to somebody. I saw it somewhere, so let's talk about it, right?
Let's talk about it.
Usyk Foster, really talented. Cool boy Stephen Fulton, also really talented. Both champions in their respective weight classes. I love it. I love it so much that it's not that lopsided fight that I was just talking about. It's not that, why are we watching this? It's not 2 unknown guys. Both guys are good. Both guys are slick. Both guys are talented. If I had to give a skill advantage, it's very slight. Like, very slight. I'm going to say Cool Boy Steph.
Yeah, I would say Fulton as well, yeah.
But I like Usyk Foster. He can box. I saw a fight where Usyk Foster came back late and got a knockdown in the fight that he needed to win. The knockdown was the difference. And so he's got something in him. He has an it factor about him, along with the skill set. Right? Both guys have tasted defeat, so they know how that feels. They know how to bounce back, readjust themselves, go back to the game board, and become champions again. Both have done so. Right? I like both guys. I wouldn't pick a winner in it because I like both guys so much, but I like Cool Boy Steph slightly, but no knock to Usyk Foster.
Yeah, and I'm probably a little bit of the same mindset, but there's one thing I do know is that Stephen Fulton can do all things through Christ with those boneless Timbs on. So hopefully he brings those back out, and I just see victory for him all day. Because then with the jean shorts too,
yeah.
Let's bring it back. Let's talk about it. Let's run the outfit back. I think boxers should start doing it. Let's just run the outfits back. No. We don't got to switch it up every time, especially if you did your thing in the outfit. Bring the outfit back.
Bring the Timbs back, but leave the jean shorts. We don't need those.
Leave the jean boxing shorts back at the crib.
Man, jean shorts are diabolical, man. Leave those alone. But man, the boneless Timbs were fired. But man, shout out Philly, but no, leave them shorts at home, man. Great matchup though, man. Talking about two really skilled guys. I hope they do that.
Yeah.
Because I can't think of other guys around that weight class, and that's a good one. Usyk Foster, Stephen Fulton. Great, exciting matchup. Two of the more skilled guys in boxing going toe to toe. It'll be a tactical fight. You know, it won't be a barn burner. Guys just rushing to knock each other's heads off. They'll both be smart about it. And so that's my type of fight. So I'm hoping we get it.
100%. Yeah, we need that one. We need the best fights in boxing. We gotta have it. We need it. Don't want to watch these lame, no good matchups anymore. We want to watch the best fights in boxing.
Talking about the best fights in boxing, man, just a quick rundown on what's going on. Upcoming boxing news. So we've got Fatal Fury. It's a video game that Riyadh Season is promoting. So they're starting with Rolly versus Ryan. That's main event. Teofimo versus Arnold Barboza. Devin Haney versus Jose Ramirez. They're doing it outside of Times Square. Good shit, good scraps. That's followed by Canelo versus William Skull the very next day. Another Riyadh Season card as Canelo goes for undisputed again against the IBF champ William Skull. Sets up an undisputed bout for Crawford in September. And so far, those are the boxing announcements. I'm sorry, Boots is going to fight Stanionis April 12th. And so it's a unification bout. Stanionis is a champ as well. Michaela Mir just defended her belt last night. Also, Brian Norman Jr., he got a knockout. So just a quick rundown of what's happening in the sport of boxing. We'll make sure to keep you updated on all things. We'll give you some previews, some post-fight opinions on what's going on in the sport of boxing. Make sure you stay tuned, stay up to date with the Unprofessional Experts podcast. Go ahead, like, follow, subscribe. We're everywhere, man. Pick a social, pick a platform, man. Spotify, Pandora, YouTube, wherever. All you have to do is just search who we are. Tell everybody. Tell a friend, tell a cat, tell a random stranger, like, I don't know you, but you need to know that the Unprofessional Experts podcast exists, and it's really good, man. Let us know what you think about this episode. Let us know what you think about these upcoming scraps. We'll be sure to give you our opinion. That's all that we have for today. Until next time.
Boxing is the only sport where unknown competitors turn into modern-day gladiators, where the roses rise through the concrete of deadly fists. Fighters not only become champions, they also become icons. The Unprofessional Experts podcast is committed to delivering raw, unfiltered content solely focused on the world's most unforgiving sport. So without hesitation, be sure to subscribe, like, and follow to our podcast. With that being said, God listens to our podcast, so should you. You're welcome.
Flames don't intimidate us. What do? We control the flame.
In the red corner, we have the global phenomenon, Dave O, the Destroyer. In the blue corner, we have the legendary JMC.
Space. Let me make sure.